Okay. Good evening, YouTube. I hope you can hear me. As the title and the thumbnail of this video suggest, it's the very last chance for people who would debate with me the greenhouse effect. Really, this is the very last video live stream ever on the subject of the greenhouse effect. And after this, I shall be returning to my editorial policy of calling out all anthropogenic global warming climate deniers as retarded, moron, idiot fucks. In the same league and camp as flat earthers, Christians, Moonies, Scientologists, moon hoaxers, chemtrailers, etc. Blah blah blah. Hello from the USA. That'll be the last message I read on screen because I'm driving and it's illegal and dangerous. So the lines are open. My telephone is on. It's fully charged. It's plugged into my aux cord, and I am waiting, amongst others, from a call from Sleepy Shoegazer, who assured me that he would be paying attention and available and not drunk at 5:30 this evening. Hello, who's on the line?
Hello?
Hello. Yes, hello.
Oh, hi. Sorry, Dick. There was a bit of a delay with the video there. I muted you on there. So, it's Sleepy Shoegazer. How you doing?
I'm good, how's you?
Yeah, I'm not so bad, thanks. Not so bad. Nearly finished work, so hopefully I'll be okay. But anyway, yes. So, climate change.
Well, the greenhouse effect, to be specific.
Well, yes, the greenhouse effect. Okay, so energy travels from the sun to the planet and enters the atmosphere.
Okay, what form is the energy traveling from the sun?
Well, you see, I take issue with what you say, and I've been Googling this to try and find where you've got that from. I'm very intrigued because all I can find is what I thought to be correct, which is the orthodox climate change argument, which is that 50%-ish, just under, is infrared, 42% is visible light, and 8% is ultraviolet light. Now, I know you said that it doesn't come and it comes in the form of photons. Now, I can tell you what a photon is.
Yeah.
Okay, so a photon, if you take a atom, and it has shells of electrons around it, if you excite one of the electrons to a higher shell, and then it drops back to the lower shell, it releases a packet of electromagnetic energy, which is a photon.
Excellent. That's more than enough for me. I just wanted to establish that the greenhouse effect is primarily driven by photons that pass through the atmosphere.
But photons are light.
That's correct. They
are indistinguishable from light. Photons and light are the same thing. So before the discovery of photons, we had light as waves, and then there was the discovery that there's this discrete packet of light that's a photon, that's a particle, and then comes in the complete mindfuck of wave-particle duality.
Well, I think
where light...
As we're not discussing quantum mechanics, at least not directly, I think we could...
No, it's not quantum mechanics.
We could agree that light travels as a wave.
Okay,
you know,
that's fine. It's
called...
I just wanted to, because I've heard you talk about photons and you weren't quite sure, so that is what a photon is.
Okay, so the photon arrives from the sun and it passes through the atmosphere.
No. Waves of electromagnetic energy. I struggle to find this on Google. I've looked and looked and looked, and I find healing.
Okay.
Direct from the sun. 100% direct from the sun. Undeniable textbook physics.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, and so how does that relate to the greenhouse effect?
Okay, so that energy enters the atmosphere. Okay? and it warms things up. Okay? And there are greenhouse gases which are more likely, or more, what's the word, have a greater tendency to pick up infrared heat because of their chemical structure. So most of air is made up of nitrogen and oxygen. Nitrogen and oxygen are made up of two of their component atoms, two oxygen atoms or two nitrogen atoms. And they have strong covalent bonds between the electrons, so they share, I believe it's a couple of electrons each, to complete their H-shell ring and become very stable, and they're less inclined to take on heat energy. Whereas greenhouse gases have three or more atoms within the molecule, and I don't know what makes those more capable of taking on infrared, but they are more capable of taking infrared.
Well,
that's been measured.
They resonate.
It's measured,
they resonate with the frequency of infrared energy. They are
the frequency of infrared. Okay.
Yeah, they are resonating.
But I completely accept that happens. That's absolutely 100% true.
So you're not denying the mechanism of the greenhouse effect?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So what is the problem with the cornerstone of anthropogenic global warming?
Okay, the issue, and I'd like to say I'm not denying this. I'm interested in what's real and true. So I don't have a strong opinion either way, but I am interested in the science. So the way that the climate models, the way climate studies are done is that all official climate models that are considered acceptable climate science follow the UN's ICPP framework, which is the CMIP framework, which is a congruated model initiative program or something like that. It's basically all the best ideas of how the environment works put together in a giant model that then environmental scientists can study, they can follow, and they can come up with results based on a uniform framework. Okay?
Yes, I'm familiar with the document and that part of the international community's desire to standardize discussions of the climate models. However, climate models are not really what I'm interested in. So there's a difference between.
Oh no, but I'm getting to that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so the way that the energy is measured is they measure the amount of energy coming in from the sun.
Yep.
The amount of energy that's in the atmosphere, or that's going on, and there are things that vary. And human activity and productivity is one of the measurements. And then they have models to estimate the energy in the atmosphere, and they can measure it as well in different ways.
In fact, there's a ring of satellites around the Earth which can measure all the energy arriving on Earth from the sun and the amount of energy leaving the Earth. And there is obviously
absolutely true.
There is a difference, and the difference can be quantified into different wavelengths and frequencies, and the amount missing is in the frequency range of trapped greenhouse.
Infrared.
That's correct. So
yeah.
So again, we're not denying that there is energy trapped on Earth that has not come.
Absolutely not.
All right.
No.
Okay. All right.
Now, okay, so. Now, as I said, I was happy for you to rant about this. I don't mind. I enjoy your rants. But there was two things I really took that I didn't want to hear you say. One is that infrared energy doesn't travel from the sun.
It does.
That's clearly wrong. The other is that you mentioned that you've not heard of CMIP.
I haven't. No, I don't know what that and that.
Okay. Now, so this comes down to how the sun influences the atmosphere and how it's measured in the models. Okay. So currently, it is just measured. It is they call this the total irradiance measurement, which is brightness essentially, and that varies because of seasonal and the sort of slight non-circular nature of our orbit around the sun. So we move a bit further away. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
That's
I am familiar with orbital cycles. There are at least two that influence.
Oh, you're breaking up, Pete. You're breaking up.
Yeah, there are at least two
You're breaking up.
orbital testing.
You're breaking up. You're breaking. I hear you.
You're fine. I hear you, no problem. Hello? But I may be going through a dead patch, and I cylinder. Well, we have been disconnected there, but I am approaching. Hello?
Hi, Nick.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think it's a little breaky.
I am approaching civilization.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent. Okay.
variations,
So,
variations in solar brightness.
Yes. Okay, so that is how it's currently viewed. Okay, and that's what's currently taken into account in climate models.
Yeah, again with,
Okay.
with the climate
And-
models,
and-
I'm not a great believer in the accuracy of any model. I don't.
No, bear with me. Bear with me.
Okay.
I don't know if we're breaking up again.
No, I can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. So, as you despair from the comments on the internet, it's the sun.
Yeah.
Okay,
of
so
course, it's all
solar
the sun.
scientists have been campaigning for a long time that there is more to do with energy from the sun than simply brightness and electromagnetic radiation, or in those three bands, as in the ultraviolet, the visible light, and the infrared. And they said that there's things like solar flares have effect, coronal mass ejections have effect, and it's basically been kept out of the equations. In 2016, there was a very large collection of very, very energetic solar flares. Now, the way that the solar irradiance is measured, they have wizardry satellites, and they measure it at a certain point in the atmosphere. And when there is a large burst of solar flares hits the atmosphere, the irradiance value drops significantly. So when there is a large amount of energy coming into the planet, the show of the sun's energy actually reduces, and that is all allocated to man's productivity. The discrepancy was so clear and so big that they've had to include it now in the CMIP modelling, and those figures were released 2018, and all new studies published after 2021 will have to include that information. Now,
you'll have to excuse me. You'll have to excuse me. I hope you're getting to the fish soon.
Oh, well, the claim is that with that change, it will be impossible for people, for humans to be shown as responsible for the gain in temperature. I'm not saying that that's the case. We'll wait till 2021 till
So
the studies start to come out.
you're saying
But
that in 2016 there were some solar flares,
Yes.
and that the way they're being accounted for in terms of their effect on the Earth's temperature, yeah,
Is being attributed to man.
okay. All right. So if we were to go back to 2015, so what the fuck? We've still fucked the atmosphere. We're still living in a planet absolutely heaving. Absolutely.
I do not disagree with you on the pollution, the consumption, the destroying of the fishes.
Hang on, please. I haven't finished.
You.
I haven't finished. You didn't let me finish.
Oh, sorry,
we're
go on.
absolutely heaving under the yoke of billions of tons of carbon in the atmosphere, causing the planet to warm up.
Well, the question comes as to how much the debate, and I'm not saying the question is.
So let's just
how
go back.
much
Let's
is
just go
kept
back.
in the atmosphere, and how much is radiated out of the atmosphere.
Oh, that is a question. I would agree. That is a question. But since we've got those satellites, we know what that figure is.
They have models and they have estimates.
Well, we have objective instruments, and that is a better basis for reality than anecdote.
It's better than nothing. I don't know. I don't know the detail of the intricacy of the satellite.
Let's live in 2015 before there was some solar flares.
There were solar flares constantly before that, Dave.
Okay, so you're saying that the extra warmth on planet Earth has got nothing to do with the extra CO2 in the atmosphere. Is that the gist of your argument?
No, that's the gist of the argument. I'm waiting to see.
Oh, you're saying there is a discussion about whether or not...
That's what I mean. That's where the debate lies.
Okay. You would like to think so?
I believe that's where the debate lies at the moment.
Okay. So the extra CO2 that's gone into the atmosphere, that's not significant?
Of course it's significant. Pollution is significant.
No, I'm not talking about pollution. I'm talking about energy. I'm talking about billions and billions and billions and billions of tons of matter which is radiating heat in our atmosphere.
Well, so when the sun is feeding infrared energy into the atmosphere, as well as it coming back from the Earth, the atmosphere is absorbing that as it comes in. It doesn't all at the planet.
Wait. When you say the atmosphere, do you mean the CO2? Who put all the who was it put all the billion tons of CO2 into the atmosphere that's trapping this heat?
Right. Well,
that was us, wasn't it?
We have done that, yes.
Yeah, that was us. So like whether the sun poops out a solar flare or the photons hit the planet and are re-radiated, the existence of the CO2 is really the problem, isn't it?
The CO2 is definitely a key greenhouse gas.
No, I'm saying it's the problem. I'm saying it's extra. I'm saying there's a difference between, okay, so I'm in my bedroom, right, and I've got it's got insulation, yeah, and it's keeping me warm. That's a normal and natural state of affairs in my bedroom, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I set fire to my duvet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that extra heat, that's a significant problem. It's not just you. It can't just be like said to be. Oh, it's okay. It's caused by infrared plasma coming from cotton particles. We have set fire to the duvet. If we put billion and billion and billion and billion and billion and billion and billions and billions of tons of matter into our atmosphere that traps energy, it doesn't matter really if there's a little bit extra came from a solar flare, does it?
Oh, well, I mean, possibly not. I will have to leave that to the climate scientists who study the model.
I'm minded for you and I to make that decision.
Okay, yeah, well,
so like
that is, that's still entirely possible.
Specifically,
I enjoy listening to you, Ron. But, if we're going to be talking the Earth in the way that it does, that troubles me.
I am not the astronomers, and the astronomers is not me. But the fact
is, breaking up again?
The fact is that the billions and billions of tons of CO2 that go into... Hello?
Oh, hello?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I'm going to have to labour the point, right? It's about the CO2, right? If CO2 traps heat... Hello? I can hear you.
Oh, like that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to labour the point. If CO2 traps heat, then putting it into the... I mean, it's not complicated, is it? Hello? Hello.
Oh.
Scotland's pretty bad for coverage. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
So, if you'll allow me to just labour this point, if you put CO2 into the atmosphere, and any energy from any source that it traps is trapped in your atmosphere, the cause of the increased heat on your planet, extra heat, is from you putting this.
Okay. Now, one thing you've mentioned the CO2 trapped energy for hundreds of years.
130.
That, which is fine. I can't find that. Where is that information?
Well, as I'm driving just now and I've got both hands on a steering wheel, I can't help you with that.
Oh no! I thought you might just be able to point me with
but
a couple of a few.
That is methane, which is hundreds of times worse than CO2, only lasts for 30 years. Hello? Hello? I can hear you. Man, I wouldn't like to have an emergency out here. I don't think it's ironic at all. I don't think that fucking the climate is a problem. The problem is our lack of fixing it. You know, people make mistakes all the time. And they fix them. You know, we could fix this, but we're not gonna. So if I'm still on the internet, then I must still have mobile phone reception because I am using my mobile phone. Well, we'll wait for Sleepy Shoegazer to reconnect. And so, just to reprise some of what I believe Sleepy Shoegazer is saying there, that there's extra activity from the sun sometimes. That's true. The sun is further away or closer to us. The sun has put variations where it's there's more energy comes from the sun or less energy from the sun, but that really is completely irrelevant to what's in our atmosphere. And the thing about the greenhouse effect is it's about what's in the atmosphere. And if we were to half the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, heat does come from CO2 that we put into the atmosphere. And so at the moment, I am struggling to see how you have dismissed the problem of the greenhouse effect simply by saying there are variations in the sun's energy. Hear me on the internet. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
All right. Yeah.
I'm not trying to. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not listening. I'm on the video.
I can hear you fine.
Sorry?
I can hear you fine.
Excellent. Right. No, I'm not trying to prove that it's not that. I'm saying that there are debates within the argument. It's there are still questions to be answered, and I appreciate you having questions to be answered. But you know, there do appear to still be questions to be answered.
I might have, but one of my questions is not the greenhouse effect doesn't work and it isn't the problem. That's not one of my questions. Right. Let me take you to the moon. Okay, the moon has no atmosphere. It has an environment. Actually, it does have an atmosphere of sorts, but it's very thin and close to the surface. It's not an atmosphere like the planet Earth's. All right. When the sun is up, the surface of the moon is extremely hot. The moon very, very hot. Yeah.
Yes.
Within hours of the sun going down at minus 110 degrees C.
Right.
Right. That is because there's no greenhouse effect. There's no atmosphere and there is nothing to trap the heat at all. So the reason this planet is not a dead snowball in space is absolutely primarily to do with our atmosphere and the greenhouse effect. It is pivotal. Nay, it is the crux of why we are not a frozen right, and therefore the more greenhouse gases we
some balancing.
I mean, you know,
I'm not saying it balances it completely, but there is some balancing. As the temperature increases, there's more water vapor. And reflect heat away from the atmosphere.
Water vapor is the most powerful greenhouse effect on Earth.
Well, Harvard or Princeton came out a year or two ago. That's a published paper you can look at.
I'm talking about its ability. Water vapor itself is a greenhouse gas because it...
Yes, oh no, yeah, but they included that in their studies, so they forgot to include the refraction.
If you add more water...
The greenhouse gas effect.
Yeah, so this is like this argument, yeah? Some CO2 that humans emit is actually absorbed by the oceans of this planet.
Sorry?
Some CO2 that we emit is being absorbed by the oceans.
Okay.
That's why they're turning acidic. They're turning into carbolic acid because they absorb. So there's a balancing effect. It's not a good thing because it's destroying microorganisms, but you know, it's keeping some of the CO2 out of the atmosphere. Some of the CO2 that humans release is absorbed by plants because plants can absorb up to a high plateau more CO2. So some is absorbed by the oceans, some is absorbed by vegetation, and some of it escapes to space. So all of those things, as you're saying, are balances, if you like. They're not really balances, they're just debits from the account, if you like.
Yeah.
All right, so the stuff that's left that goes into the atmosphere that traps heat, that's the problem. That is the problem. We've gone up from 180 parts per million to 410, something like that. I forget exactly the figure, but it's over 400.
Yeah.
It's over 400 now. It hasn't been that high for 800,000 years.
Getting crackly again, but yes.
Yeah, and so that is the problem. The problem is not that Summit goes away, or that, you know, the problem is that there's more going in. It doesn't matter that some of it escapes, and we can quantify that with the same objective instrumentation that we use like on satellites to measure frequencies of radiation. We know there are 35 billion tons a year in the atmosphere. That's after all of those debits we were talking about.
Yeah.
All right, that's 35 billion tons per year, right? Each year, that's enough for 6 tons per adult. So you've got your own 6 tons of CO2 to radiate heat for you. Do you know how many atomic bombs per second that is equivalent to?
No, go on.
That is 40 atomic bombs per second, the equivalent amount of energy that's in our atmosphere from the greenhouse effect.
Okay. I mean, I'm certainly going to go and read up on these bits and pieces. I don't deny them. I don't deny them. I don't.
Well,
I'm interested. Like I say, I am interested. Which is,
if you don't deny them, if you don't deny them,
sorry.
If you don't deny them, then I'll have to ask, why are you phoning in?
Because you said what's wrong with this model of global warming, and you said that infrared energy doesn't travel to planets from the sun, and that was that blew my mind.
I remember saying something to somebody who phoned up about infrared, but I don't remember me saying. I don't remember me.
When you at the end of you gave your explanation of climate change at the end of the video. You were driving at night the other night, the one I missed. And gave your explanation, and you said, something along the lines of infrared doesn't come from the sun to the planet. It comes in photons, which are a different part of light. I think you said. It is. And I wanted to clarify that.
Right.
And also that the CMIP6 is occurring. Whether it's incredibly significant or not, it's quite a big deal in the environmental science world.
It may or may not increase or decrease the amount of energy reaching Earth. That seems to be what you're saying.
It absolutely, that's it.
Yeah.
It will make the calculations more accurate, and we can see now. The claims of the solar physicists is that this is going to change everything.
It doesn't change the operation of the greenhouse effect. It doesn't change.
Saying that they claim that, so, and they're not stupid people. These are they're solar physicists.
If more energy arrives from the sun, more will be trapped by the CO2.
Quite possibly.
If less arrives, less will be trapped.
Quite possibly.
Okay.
Quite possibly.
And as for my comment to Alistair, who phoned up about infrared, I believe what I was trying to say, you'll have to excuse me while I drive, juggle my telephones.
Yeah, that's fine. I understand.
And try and remember my degree in natural science. But it's my understanding that the greenhouse effect is not driven by the infrared that comes from the sun. The greenhouse effect is specifically driven by infrared radiation re-emitted from the surface of the Earth.
Right, but is that the same people that told you that infrared doesn't come from the sun?
Nobody told me infrared didn't come from the sun. You'll have to excuse me if I have misspoke, but I am not.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. If that was just it was driving. If that was a misstatement, I have no problem with that.
I am not the laws of physics. But it is my understanding.
No, we're all trying to find a good model, like you say.
It is my understanding, and I'm sure I was trying to communicate this to Alistair, that the greenhouse effect is not driven by the infrared that comes from the sun. It is driven by photons, which are absorbed at the surface and re-emitted as infrared. Just to clarify any little hiccup I may have had in my speech.
But again, you see, that's a problem. Photons are indistinguishable from any other light. They are just light waves. If they travel through the atmosphere, they have the same effect as any other.
Well, I'll have to disagree with you. The photons are light. They're not indistinguishable from other light. Photons are part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yes, they're indistinguishable from the rest of other than their frequency. They're indistinguishable. If you put a load of photons together, they become a wave of light.
It's not my understanding that gamma rays are light. They're electromagnetic energy. Light is electromagnetic energy.
So gamma rays are electromagnetic radiation.
That's right.
As is X-rays, which is the next frequency band down.
Yeah.
Then ultraviolet, the next frequency band down, and then visible light, which is 400 to 700 nanometers.
Right.
Then after that, it's infrared, and then after that, it's radio.
If a gamma ray hits Earth, it will be absorbed, the Earth will heat up, and it will re-radiate infrared energy, which will be trapped by carbon dioxide.
If a gamma ray hits the Earth's atmosphere, it can be absorbed by anything it hits. It could be absorbed by an oxygen molecule, a greenhouse molecule. It could be absorbed by whatever it comes into contact with. It could be absorbed by you and make you unwell.
Just to clarify this, on their way through the atmosphere, the frequency of electromagnetic radiation that is light is not absorbed by CO2. The bonds in carbon and oxygen do not resonate with the frequency of visible light in the electromagnetic spectrum. They don't.
No, infrared warms things up. Infrared is heat. Right. Anything that's getting warmer and cooler, generally the largest effect of that will be infrared.
All energy is heat. All heat is energy. However, it's about
the way we perceive heat is through infrared.
Well, you do, but you can measure energy, which is all that heat is.
Well, if I use infrared goggles, I can see people walking around in a colder environment.
Yeah, you can. But what I'm saying,
when you're measuring heat, you're measuring
energy.
Infrared.
You're measuring energy.
If you're measuring heat, you're measuring infrared.
Well, just to be clear, though, photons do not resonate the bonds between carbon and oxygen. They don't.
They don't have that affinity to give it extra, but they can be absorbed by anything. They're traveling across the universe, waiting to interact with something.
Yeah, but they do not. Let's just say they don't twang. Then they do not.
Okay.
They do not twang.
A photon is not necessarily a gamma ray.
Oh, no, I'm not saying they are. I was just.
Okay, all right.
I just want to be very clear. Photons pass through the atmosphere without resonating any CO2 bonds. They don't.
I don't know if that's really true.
Well,
I'm not sure.
You've got Google
they don't have a tendency.
Why don't you Google that for us?
They've got they're much smaller wavelengths, much smaller things, so they can pass through things without interacting with them. Infrared's a much longer wavelength, more likely to interact with things.
Yeah, well, it's my understanding, and as I'm driving and juggling my phones, as I say, it's my understanding that the light that we see all around us, that's not driving the greenhouse effect.
Sorry?
It's not driving the greenhouse effect.
For the visible light?
The visible light, no. Once it's absorbed by the surface and the surface warms up, having absorbed its energy,
that re-emits as infrared. Yeah.
And it is that re-change. That's it in a nutshell.
Hello?
That is the energy which is of concern, if you like. Photons, the sun's brilliance, right? Although you may say it varies, and I'm sure it does vary, but its variance is...
I've not heard anything for a while.
Okay, I can hear you. I would say the sun's variance is insignificant compared to the extra CO2 in the atmosphere.
Okay. Well, I mean that's fair enough, and I think we need to. Well, we'll start to find out next year what the scientists say about that. I mean the people who work in the field. I don't mean anyone can have a scientific opinion. You and I can both have scientific opinions. So when I say the scientists, I mean the actual environmental scientists.
I'm still struggling to find out what yours is. I think your opinion so far comes across to me as there's still a debate to be had.
I think there is, but I think there's a debate about a great many things.
What is the debate about? What is the debate about?
It's whether it's going to cause continued warming.
All right, so no matter how much CO2 we put in the atmosphere, we're not sure if it's going to continue warming us.
Well, there seems to be quite a lot of solar physicists who feel that way.
Well, I'm asking you. I did say in your own words.
I don't know.
Well, then why are you talking to me? Because I did ask in your own words, what is your position? Either you are phoning up to say we're not going to get any warmer because of CO2, and you can support that in your own words. Don't tell me what solar physicists have got to say about it. Either you have decided for yourself, based upon your understanding, which you can repeat to me right now, that we're not going to get any warmer no matter how much CO2 we put into the atmosphere. Either that is your position or it's not. Is it? Hello?
Hello, hi, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so is it your position, you personally, do you think we're not going to get any warmer no matter how much CO2 we put into the atmosphere?
No, that's not my position.
All right, so, well then, what? why are we talking?
I think we're going around in circles.
Yeah, man.
Like I said, I wanted to talk about, I just wanted to bring that to your awareness because you said you weren't aware of it. And I wanted to clarify the radiation from space, and that's it.
So
I'm going to leave it there.
So
are we? Very well. I'm going to hope I don't get blocked.
Are we going to get warmer if we put more CO2 into the atmosphere? Yes or no? Are we going to get warmer on planet Earth if we put more CO2 into the atmosphere? Yes or no?
I don't know.
Then fuck off, man.
Okay, take care.
Yeah. Really? Fuck's sake, man. If you don't know, then fuck off. If you can't figure it out for yourself with the available information, if you've yet to make your mind up, then keep pooping out the CO2. It's my considered opinion that if we put more CO2 into the atmosphere, we will continue to get warmer. That's my position, and I did a series of videos in the hope that somebody would phone up and tell me they disagreed with me, but apparently not. What I don't want is people who don't know. Man, I reckon there's probably, several billion people who don't know, but I don't want to talk to them. Either you know what the fuck is going on this planet, or you don't know. If you don't know, you might as well, like the Pope, fuck you in the ass. If you don't know what's going on this planet, just let the Pope in to fuck your children. Because if you don't know, somebody could just as well tell you the fairy did it at the bottom of the garden. If you don't know, then you're a fucking idiot. And the Pope is your best friend. And the Pope will be along shortly to tell you that Jesus touched you in a special way. I've read the science. I made my mind up. I've made a decision. It's quite a brave thing to make a decision, isn't it? It means you're more or less prepared to say, no, this is the way it is. I've decided. I've heard all the pish. I really have. I haven't heard any new pish today. I haven't. Solar radiance increasing or decreasing will surely just increase or decrease the amount of CO2, the amount of energy that CO2 is trapping. So, and if you can't make a decision based upon the available science as to whether or not more CO2 will lead to more warming, then either you're confused or you're a fucking moron. And I say you're confused just to be generous to some people who might be struggling with basic chemistry and physics. So, I am approaching some tricky roundabouts and other motorway junctions, so I'm going to leave it there. If you're out there and you're confused about climate science and you think there's a debate going on, good luck. Have fun. I'm not confused. I found it pretty straightforward. There's this material, it's called carbon dioxide, and one of its properties is that it stores heat in the atmosphere. And since almost nobody with two brain cells denies that basic fundamental property of the molecule carbon dioxide, it surely follows, simply for any fucking retard, that the more of it you put into the atmosphere, the more heat gets trapped in the atmosphere. I mean, does that sound complicated to you? It doesn't sound complicated to me. I understand there are you know, there are other factors at work, you know. There's an almost insignificant amount of heat coming from the molten core of the planet. There's a slight variance in the amount of sunshine reaching us because of our orbital cycles and the sun's solar activity. I get that. But at the end of the day, since CO2 cannot be denied to trap heat in our atmosphere, the more of it we put in the atmosphere, the warmer it must get. I do hope that was clear enough for anybody in the cosmos that might be tuning in. Because it's clear enough for me. And if it's not clear enough for me, I should just like to repeat, perhaps you ought to let the Pope fuck you in the ass. Okay, this will be the last ever greenhouse debate that I do. In fact, it might well be the last talk radio show that I do, because it's a little bit tricky, and it has, you know, varying results for me. So, have a great night. I'm going home to put some CO2 into the atmosphere, turn up my central heating, fuel up my truck. Because I don't give a fuck. I wouldn't like anybody to be any doubt.